The auction notice nailed to my gatepost flapped in the October wind like a crow's wing. Public auction, November 15th, 1881, property of Mrs. Catherine Mercer, 40 acres, dwelling, and all contents to satisfy outstanding debts. I stood there, staring at it, my shawl pulled tight against the cold, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just the hollow acceptance of a woman who'd been beaten down so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand upright. 43 years old, and my life was over. My husband Thomas had been dead for 7 years. 7 years of trying to work this land alone. 7 years of crops failing and cattle dying and debts piling up like winter snow. 7 years of watching the people of Silver Creek, people I'd known my whole life, turn their backs on me. Widow Mercer, they called me, always with that tone. Pity mixed with contempt, like I was both pathetic and somehow at fault for my own misfortune. The women whispered when I walked past. The men looked through me like I was already gone. The shopkeepers extended credit they knew I'd never repay, then complained loudly about it where I could hear. I'd become invisible. Worse than invisible. I'd become a cautionary tale. That's what happens when a woman tries to run a ranch alone. Poor thing, should have remarried years ago. Pride goeth before a fall. I tore the notice down, crumpled it in my fist, and walked back to my cabin, the place Thomas built with his own hands in 1863, when we were newlyweds full of dreams. The place where we'd raised our daughter Mary before she married and moved to California and stopped writing. The place I was about to lose. Inside, I started sorting through what little I owned, deciding what to pack, what to sell, where to go after the auction stripped me bare. Maybe California. Maybe Mary would take pity on her mother. Maybe... A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. Nobody visited me anymore. When I opened the door, I found myself looking up at James Holloway, the wealthiest rancher in 3 counties, owner of the massive Double H spread that covered half the valley, the man whose cattle grazed on land that made my 40 acres look like a vegetable patch. He stood there in his fine wool coat and clean Stetson, looking down at me with those steady gray eyes I remembered from childhood. "Catherine," he said quietly, "may I come in?" I hadn't spoken to James Holloway in 20 years. No, I'd seen him around town. Hard not to, he was Silver Creek's most prominent citizen. But we didn't speak, didn't acknowledge each other beyond a nod if we passed on the street. There was history between us. Old history, the kind that makes looking at someone feel like opening a wound that never quite healed. "Mr. Holloway," I said stiffly, "what brings you here?" I saw the auction notice. My cheeks burned with shame. Of course he'd seen it. Everyone had seen it. My failure was public knowledge. "If you've come to make an offer on the land ahead of the sale, you're wasting your time. The bank will get whatever it sells for." "I'm not here about the land." He shifted his hat in his hands. "May I come in, please?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. He had to duck through my doorway, too tall for Thomas's modest frame. His presence filled my small cabin, making everything look shabbier by comparison. I saw my home through his eyes. The threadbare curtains, the patched furniture, the empty shelves where food should be. "Coffee?" I asked, more out of habit than hospitality. "If you're having some." I wasn't. I had been rationing my coffee for weeks, but pride made me put the pot on anyway, using the last of my grounds. We sat at my kitchen table in awkward silence while the coffee brewed. James looked around the cabin like he was memorizing it. I stared at my hands, rough and calloused from work no lady should have to do. "How have you been, Catherine?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. How did I look like I'd been? "Managing," I said shortly. "I heard about Thomas. I'm sorry I never said so at the time." It was 7 years ago. Still, I should have come, should have offered help. "Why?" The word came out sharper than I intended. We were nothing to each other then, hadn't been for years. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe? Or regret? "That doesn't mean I stopped caring." I stood up abruptly, busying myself with pouring coffee I couldn't afford to share. "If you've come to offer charity, Mr. Holloway, I don't want it. I've had enough pity from this town to last a lifetime." "It's not pity." He took the cup I thrust at him. "Catherine, I want to help you." "Why?" "Because..." He stopped. Started again. Because you shouldn't have to face this alone. I've been alone for 7 years. I'm accustomed to it. That doesn't make it right. I sat back down, too tired to keep standing. What do you want, James? Really? He met my eyes, and for the first time in 20 years, I let myself really look at him. He'd aged well, 52 now, silver threading through his dark hair, lines around his eyes that somehow made him more handsome instead of less. I want to be your friend again, if you'll let me. But I had no idea accepting his friendship would turn my life and this entire town upside down. James Holloway started coming by every Sunday after church. At first, it was brief visits. He'd check on my fences, bring supplies I claimed I didn't need, fix things around the cabin that had been broken for years. He never asked permission, just showed up and started working. "You don't have to do this," I told him the third week, watching him repair my chicken coop. "I know. People will talk. Let them talk." James. He set down his hammer and looked at me. "I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes and nobody to spend it on. My wife died 10 years ago. My children are grown and gone. If I want to help an old friend, I'll help an old friend. We're not friends. We haven't been since you married Thomas instead of me." The words hung in the air like smoke. I hadn't expected him to say it out loud. We'd never spoken of it, never acknowledged that before Thomas, before everything, there had been James and Catherine. Young, in love, planning a future together. Until my father forbade it, said the Holloway boy was too wild, too poor, too risky, pushed me towards steady, reliable Thomas Mercer instead. And I listened. I chose safety over love. "That was a long time ago," I said quietly. 23 years. He picked up his hammer again. "Doesn't mean I forgot." After he left that day, I sat on my porch and cried for the first time in years. Now, before I tell you what happened next, and I promise you, this is where the town really lost its mind, I want to ask you something. If you're finding truth in this story, if you're seeing yourself or someone you love in these words, would you hit that subscribe button? It helps me keep sharing stories about second chances, about love that waits, about women who deserve better than what life gave them. Thank you kindly. Now, where was I? Oh yes, the day James made his intentions clear. The gossip started the 4th week. I'd gone into town for supplies, or what I could afford of them, and the general store went quiet when I walked in. The kind of quiet that meant everyone had just been talking about you. Mrs. Adelaide Tornton, the banker's wife and unofficial queen of Silver Creek society, cornered me by the flour barrel. "Catherine, dear," she said with false sweetness, "we've all noticed James Holloway's been spending quite a bit of time at your place. He's been helping with repairs." Of course. She smiled like a cat with cream. "Although one does wonder what a man of his means could possibly want with," she looked me up and down, "well, with your 40 acres. The implication was clear. She thought James was circling like a vulture, waiting to claim my land cheap once the auction stripped me of it. "James isn't interested in my land," I said coldly. "Then what is he interested in?" Mrs. Tornton's eyes glittered. "Surely not companionship. I mean, you're hardly in a position to offer someone like him anything of value." The words hit like a slap. Because she was right, wasn't she? What could I possibly offer James Holloway? I left without buying anything, my meager pride the only thing I had left. But the gossip spread like wildfire. "Widow Mercer's trying to trap James Holloway. She's using her feminine wiles to escape her debts. Poor James, too kind-hearted to see he's being manipulated. Wait till the auction, then we'll see her true colors." I told James to stop coming. Tried to, anyway. "People are talking," I said when he showed up the following Sunday. "They think I'm using you. They think you're taking advantage of me. Either way, it's not right." "What do you think?" I struggled to find words. "I think I don't understand why you're doing this, after all these years, after everything." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you remember the day you married Thomas?" "Of course." "I was there, standing in the back of the church. You probably didn't see me." I hadn't known that. The revelation made my chest tight. "I watched you walk down that aisle, and I thought my heart would stop. But I also thought, if this is what makes her happy, if Thomas is who she chose, then I'll respect that. I'll stay away. I'll let her live her life. James, I stayed away for 18 years, Catherine, all through your marriage. I never interfered, never contacted you, never did anything that might cause problems between you and Thomas. Even after my Mary died and I was alone again, I stayed away because you'd made your choice. Then why come now? Because Thomas is gone and you're suffering, and I can't, his voice cracked, I can't watch you lose everything when I have the means to help. I won't. People think I'm trying to steal my land. Are you? The question was so blunt it shocked me. No, of course not. I would never. Then what does it matter what they think? It matters because I have to live in this town, because after the auction I'll have nothing and nobody, and their gossip will be all that's left of my reputation. Then don't let there be an auction. I stared at him. What? Don't let them take your land. Don't let them win. James, I can't pay the bank. I've got nothing left. But I do.
The week before the auction, I received a letter from the bank. I opened it with shaking hands, expecting another demand, another threat, another reminder of my failures. Instead, I found this. Dear Mrs. Mercer, this letter is to inform you that all outstanding debts associated with your property have been satisfied in full. The public auction scheduled for November 15, 1881, has been canceled. Your deed has been cleared and will be returned to you at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Harrison Banks, President, Silver Creek Savings and Trust. I read it 3 times before the words made sense. All debts satisfied. In full. James. It had to be James. I rode to the Double H Ranch that very afternoon, the letter clutched in my fist, my emotions a mess of gratitude and fury and something else I couldn't name. His foreman directed me to the south pasture where James was overseeing the fall roundup. When he saw me riding up, he excused himself and met me halfway. You paid my debts, I said, without preamble. Yes. Why? Because you needed help. I didn't ask for this. I know. James, it's too much. I can never repay you. I don't want repayment. Then what do you want? I was shouting now, weeks of confusion and stress and unwanted hope pouring out. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? Nothing you're willing to give. That's not an answer. Catherine. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. I've spent 23 years respecting your choices, your decision to marry Thomas, your decision to make a life without me. I've stayed away, stayed silent, because that's what you wanted. And now? Now I'm asking, respectfully, with no expectation, no pressure, if there might be room in your life for something more than loneliness. My heart hammered against my ribs. More? Friendship, if that's all you want. Companionship, partnership. Whatever you're willing to offer, I'll take. He paused. But if you're asking what I hope for, I hope that maybe, after all these years, you might consider giving us a second chance. Us? There was an us once, Catherine, before your father interfered, before Thomas, before everything went wrong. We were going to build a life together. Do you remember? I did remember. God help me, I'd never forgotten. I loved Thomas, I whispered. I was a good wife to him. I know you were, and I'm glad. He was a good man, and he deserved your love. James's voice was thick with emotion. But he's gone, Catherine, and I'm still here. I've always been here, waiting. For what? For you to be ready. For you to maybe, he took a breath, to maybe love me back. The day of what should have been the auction arrived anyway. Word about the canceled sale had spread fast, but people showed up at the courthouse anyway. Some out of curiosity, some out of spite, some hoping to see me humiliated regardless. I wasn't planning to go, but James sent word through his foreman, meet me at the courthouse at noon. Please, trust me. So I went. The courthouse steps were packed with people. All of Silver Creek seemed to be there, whispering and speculating. When I arrived, the crowd parted like I had plague. Mrs. Thornton stood near the front, her expression sour. Come to watch your mysterious benefactor claim his prize? She asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. I ignored her and climbed the steps. James was already there, standing tall and straight in his finest suit. When he saw me, his whole face softened. You came. I asked you to. I did. He turned to address the crowd. Thank you all for gathering here today. I know the auction was canceled, but I wanted to speak publicly about why. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many of you have been speculating about my relationship with Mrs. Mercer, about my intentions, about what I might gain from helping her. His voice carried clearly in the autumn air. So I thought it was time to be honest about everything. My stomach dropped. What was he doing? 23 years ago, James continued, I was in love with Catherine Hayes. We were young, we were foolish, and we were planning to marry. But her father thought I wasn't good enough, and maybe he was right. I was wild back then, reckless. I had more dreams than sense and more pride than prospects. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. So Catherine married Thomas Mercer instead, and I want you all to know I respected that choice. Thomas was a good man, better than me in many ways. He deserved Catherine, and she built a good life with him. I never interfered, never tried to come between them. I married my Mary, had my children, built my ranch. I moved on with my life. He paused, his eyes finding me in the crowd. But I never stopped loving her, not once in 23 years. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Mrs. Thornton's face went white. When Thomas died, James said, I wanted to help, wanted to reach out, but I stayed away out of respect for Catherine's grief. For 7 years, I watched her struggle alone, watched this town, his voice hardened, abandon her, mock her, treat her like a burden instead of the strong, capable woman she is. He descended the steps until he stood directly in front of me. So yes, I paid her debts. Every cent. And before you start whispering about what I expect in return, let me be clear. I expect nothing. Catherine owes me nothing. Not gratitude, not affection, not her land, not her hand. Nothing. Then why? Someone shouted from the crowd. Because I love her, James said simply. I've loved her since we were children. I loved her when she married someone else. I loved her through her whole marriage and his death and these 7 hard years after. And I'll love her until I die, whether she returns that love or not. He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. My heart stopped. Catherine Mercer, he said, dropping to one knee right there on the courthouse steps in front of the entire town. I'm not asking for your land. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm not offering charity or pity. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band. I'm asking you to marry me, not because you need saving, but because I need you. I'm offering you partnership, not possession, companionship, not condescension, a life where you're cherished, not pitied, where you're an equal, not a dependent. Tears streamed down my face. I know I'm asking a lot. I know 23 years is a long time. I know you might not love me the way I love you. But Catherine, if there's even a chance, even the smallest possibility that you might want to try, I'm here. I've always been here, and I'll wait as long as you need. The crowd had gone absolutely silent. I looked at this man kneeling before me, this man who'd respected my choices even when they broke his heart, who'd stayed away when staying away must have killed him, who'd loved me steadily, patiently, impossibly for 23 years. And I thought about the girl I'd been at 20, the one who'd loved wild, reckless James Holloway with all her heart, the one who'd been forced to choose safety over love, the girl I'd buried when I married Thomas. Maybe it was time to let her live again. Yes, I whispered. What? James' eyes widened. Yes, I said louder, pulling him to his feet. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to try. Yes, My voice broke. I think I've loved you all along, even when I couldn't, even when I shouldn't. You were always there in the back of my heart, waiting. He kissed me right there on the courthouse steps, in front of God and everyone. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some scandalized, some weeping. Mrs. Thornton looked like she'd swallowed a wasp. I didn't care. For the first time in 7 years, maybe for the first time in 23 years, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The wedding was small, just family and close friends at the church, followed by a reception at the Double H Ranch. My daughter Mary came all the way from California. When she saw me in my wedding dress, simple blue calico, nothing fancy, she burst into tears. "Mama, you look happy." "I am happy." "I'm sorry," she said, gripping my hands. "I'm sorry I left you alone, that I stopped writing. I was angry at Papa for dying, and I took it out on you, and..."
Hush, I pulled her into my arms. You're here now. That's what matters. James's children were there too. His 2 sons and daughter, all grown with families of their own. They welcomed me warmly. James's children were there too. His 2 sons and daughter, all grown with families of their own. They welcomed me warmly, with none of the resentment I'd feared. He's been alone too long, his daughter Sarah told me. We're just glad he finally stopped waiting and started living again. The whole town showed up at the reception, even the ones who'd gossiped cruelly. James had made it clear that everyone was welcome. No grudges, no hard feelings, fresh start for all. Mrs. Thornton approached me near the punch bowl, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Holloway, I wanted to apologize for the things I said, the assumptions I made. I was wrong. I could have been petty, could have thrown her words back in her face. Instead, I said, "We're all wrong sometimes, Adelaide. Thank you for coming." Relief flooded her face. "You're kinder than I deserve." Maybe, but kindness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to be better than our worst moments. The years that followed were the sweetest I'd ever known. James didn't ask me to sell my 40 acres. Instead, he helped me make them productive again. We planted an orchard together, apple trees that would take years to bear fruit, but we had time now. Time and partnership and hope. I didn't become the lady of the manor, didn't sit idle in his big house while servants did everything. Instead, I worked alongside him, managing books, hosting ranch hands for meals, riding out to check fences and cattle. We were partners, equals. Some mornings I'd wake up in his arms and have to remind myself this was real, that I was allowed to be this happy, that love could come twice in one lifetime. "What are you thinking?" James would ask, seeing my expression. "That I wasted 23 years. We didn't waste them. We lived them. We learned from them. And now we get to live these years together, wiser than we were at 20. We hosted gatherings at the ranch, big Sunday dinners where neighbors and ranch hands and family all crowded around our table. The house that had been quiet for so long filled with laughter and warmth. We traveled, too. Took the train to San Francisco to visit Mary, to Denver to see James's sons. Small adventures for 2 people who thought their adventuring days were done. We sat on the porch in the evenings watching sunsets paint the valley gold and talked about everything. About Thomas and Mary, his first wife, without guilt or jealousy. About the years we'd lost and the years we'd found. About growing old together, finally. "Do you have regrets?" I asked him once. "Only that I didn't fight harder for you the first time." "My father would have never allowed it." "I should have made you run away with me anyway." I laughed. "We were children. We would have starved." "Maybe, but we would have starved together." He kissed my temple. "Though I can't regret the path that led us here. My children, your Mary, the lives we lived, it all brought us to this porch, this moment, this second chance. Second chances are rare. Then we'd better not waste ours." We didn't. I had 7 good years with James Holloway. 7 years of waking up loved, of partnership and laughter and quiet contentment, of finally understanding that I'd been worth loving all along, not despite my struggles, but including them. When I got sick in the winter of 1888, neither of us pretended I'd recover. "I'm not afraid," I told him as we sat by the fire in our bedroom, my strength fading daily. "I am," he admitted. "I just got you back. 7 years isn't enough. 23 years wasn't enough when we were young. 70 years wouldn't be enough now." I took his hand. "But James, these 7 years were worth all the waiting, worth all the pain, worth everything. Don't leave me, Catherine. I have to eventually, but not yet, not quite yet." I held on through Christmas, determined to have one more holiday with our whole family gathered. Mary came from California. James's children brought their children. The house was full of life and love and laughter. On Christmas morning, I watched James play with his grandchildren, our grandchildren now, and felt such fierce gratitude it almost hurt. This is what I'd been given. Not just James, but this whole beautiful, messy, loving family. I died 3 days after Christmas, on a quiet morning with snow falling outside. James was holding my hand, Mary was there too, and Sarah, James's daughter, who'd become like a daughter to me. "I love you," I whispered to James. "I'm sorry it took me so long to say it properly. I love you too, always have, always will. Don't mourn too long. You're too good at loving to spend the rest of your life alone." Catherine, promise me, live, be happy. You taught me that second chances are real. Don't forget it yourself. Those were my last words. I died as Catherine Holloway, loved and loving, surrounded by family, in the arms of the man who'd waited 23 years to call me his wife.